Sit down, take a two and two, money till we get it. Wall, and that cool was ain't talking. Money stick, all that bullshit, keep on the side.
Are you a Bigfoot believer as well?
I've done some Bigfoot investigations out here in Colorado. And I'll tell you why, because we've had UFO sightings with Bigfoot. And I just happened to meet who is a good buddy of mine, Joe Fex, a Bigfoot hunter, investigator out of Denver. We just happened to meet at one of these UFO lectures and stuff. And he was talking about Bigfoot. And I'm going, that would be awesome. And so just like ghost investigation, I got to tell your audience out there, I got involved with UFO stuff. There wasn't really like a UFO 101 book at the time. I went to a lot of lectures. I did a lot of research before I started jumping on this on my own. Now, when it came to ghost investigations, I sat in with ghost investigator teams from Denver and Colorado Springs, I don't know, half a dozen times, learning from them before I went out on my own. I just don't jump right into it. You got to learn the steps. Bigfoot was the same way. I went out on a couple of Bigfoot investigations with Joe Fix, and he trained me. This is what you look for. This is what I'm nowhere as good as Joe Fix, and I never will be, because that's his forte, is Bigfoot investigations. But the first one we did together at an active investigation where an eyewitness saw one is where I saw my first footprint. This was in Bailey, Colorado. And I tell you, it was a night and day thing. It was, I'd never experienced that before. We were on the edge of, I think it was a Pike National Forest, and which goes back way, way back into Colorado. No one ever goes back there. And we're walking up a side of a hill, and where it had snowed. And sure enough, man, there's these footprints with little toes in the snow, and it was right, left, about 4 foot away from each other. So it was a 4-foot gate, pretty big gate.
Yeah, it's twice.
And
they
were about 18 to 22 inches in diameter. And we watched it. We tracked them. And what was cool about that was near that area were rabbit footprints, were coyote, and so. The bear were hibernating at the time. So we actually saw other animal footprints that were, natural to that environment, that forest. And they were nothing close. I mean, people would say it's a rabbit hopping. That's where you're getting the Bigfoot prints. Well, we saw the rabbit hopping prints, and that's not the prints we saw. Matter of fact, back here somewhere, over on this side. Well, I guess you can't see it. I actually have a casting over there,
a casting of a
Bigfoot casting from Patterson case, the a year before he actually shot the actual Bigfoot walking.
Is the Bigfoot an alien as well, you think, or do you think that's just a beast that exists here on Earth?
I think
that
it's
kind of evolved next to us.
I think it's like a giant Pithecus.
Okay,
Gigantopithecus.
That's what I kind of. Now there are a lot of people out there that say that that's alien and they're alien involved, but I don't think they've ever done Bigfoot investigations.
Some people think Bigfoot's a shapeshifter, and that's when you get kind of to the. That's when you get to the.
That's a skinwalker. Yeah, skinwalkers are shapeshifters too. I mean, that's the whole skinwalkers. Yinaluchi or whatever. I know. I'm sorry, I mispronounced it, but I think it was a Navajo name. But it's a human that can walk on all fours. So if you watch these shows, it's funny as hell when you watch some of these shows. I know I'm bouncing to skinwalkers now, but it's funny when you watch some of these shows and they go, that bird, that owl, that's a skinwalker, and they're I'm an investigator. No. If you actually talk to the Native Americans, Yinalushi means those that walk on all fours. Done. which throws out anything with wings, right? It has to be something that walks on all fours, and it's a medicine man or an evil medicine man or whatever. And the whole thing with the skinwalker and how the word came, well, that's the English version of it. I think it was the Navajo and the Utes were fighting back and forth back in the day. And it's really hard when you go way back and research the Ute tribe. I think they were trading with the Spaniards. The Spaniards, they were trading slaves. they were fighting the Navajos, and they were capturing the children and the women. This was slave trading that the Utes were doing way before we even migrated. Europeans migrated, to the U.S. So North America. So and then they also were trading leather. The Ute Indian tribe were very proficient with leather products. So the Spaniards and the French would come and visit them, and because their leather was the best. And they would trade with horses and guns. And so they became very, very proficient on horseback shooting. And they were just like annihilating. They were in Utah. They started to migrate and take over parts of Colorado, which, of course, it was Utah and Colorado was one big territory back then. And they were just kicking I'm pretty sure it was a Navajo. They were just kicking their butts. And so the Navajo cursed them with Yinalushi, cursed them with the Skinwalker. And that's how it got to the Ute tribe. Now, when I talked to the Native American, the Ute elder, and I'm so mad that didn't make it on the show, that I can't even use the word Skinwalker or Yinalushi in this presence. I can just describe what I'm talking about. Because if you say the name like Beetlejuice, it'll show up as far as they're concerned. So those elders, those tribes, that are very, very serious about this, that you can't even say the name in their presence because you're cursing them and you're cursing their family. So when you talk to them, and that's how I learned all this talking to the elder, and then I did some research about it, and the research followed that same protocol. And he was saying one that talked about Bigfoot. Well, I did another investigation in Bailey, the one that actually made finding Bigfoot, and this time it was two ladies that saw a Bigfoot run by, and I think the Bigfoot was watching the women because there is that kind of, if you go back to stories of Bigfoot in the past, they like you women. They like to watch them.
There's Bigfoot love stories out
curious.
there. Yeah.
I mean, there's actually some horrific ones too, where they fought with the Native Americans and would kill the Native Americans. They would make wicker baskets. This is one old story I picked up years and years ago where they would make this it's like a wicker basket, but it's not. But just think of it. And then they had spikes inside the bottom of it, and they would raid the Native American camps and throw them in the back of the basket, kill them, and take them off. Now you're going, well, that's pretty bad. But you have to understand too that the tribe might have been fighting with them, and that might have been their version of defense and offense.
Right.
Okay. Now I can guarantee you that, and I've seen police reports, 2 of them, that pertain to what we think was a Bigfoot killing of a human. Okay.
In Colorado?
No, both of them came out of Tennessee in the Appalachians. And and we think, well, one case, I'll just tell you, one case, it was a young couple that were day hiking, and they come up to this open area and they see a Bigfoot picking up a deer. We have those same type of sightings here in Colorado. Over in Bailey, Colorado, that's the Sasquatch Center. There's a museum there, and they track all the sightings. It's a pretty cool place if you go through Bailey, and they sell all kinds of Bigfoot stuff there too. But one of the stories is one of the investigators there came across where you could see where a deer carcass was dragged and picked up and taken away, and then there were some footprints, like Bigfoot footprints. So it's not anything new. So they come across this, and what the police report said was the young girl panicked and was screaming, and the guy was in shock. The Bigfoot came over, killed her to stop her from screaming, went back, picked up the dead deer and walked off. The police report said it was a bear walking on its hind legs, killed the girl, walked on his hind legs back to the deer, picked up the deer and walked away. I swear to God, that's the police report I read.
Wow.
So unless it was Yogi Bear out there walking on his hind legs, both there and back, instead of just running at him on all 4. The other one was a hunter came across a tree, and there was a hole inside the tree, and embedded inside the hole was the torso of a hunter, and the arms and legs were ripped off, and they were stuck on the branches. And that report And then the gun was broken in half. Okay. Now we do know from we researched Bigfoot sightings in the area, and we did hear and we did pick up there was some sightings of a rogue Bigfoot in that general area at one point. What we think might have happened is that hunter took a shot at one, or he shot and killed one, and its mate came back and got him, and then left him there as a warning to other hunters. I mean, they're not going to ride on a tree or on the ground. Don't kill us.
Don't shoot a Bigfoot, right?
Don't shoot a Bigfoot. So that was their way, we think. Now, the police report stated it was some maniac idiot out there. What's his name from one of the haunted movies, Jason, right, or something like that. That's I was a volunteer deputy for 8 years, and we've had Bigfoot sightings and weird paranormal sightings. And the first thing the sheriff's department would do, well, they just associate it with what's common. But then again, too, police departments aren't trained in paranormal investigations, so they really don't know. But they have to put something out there, and that's the best that deputy could do is say, well, I'm thinking it was a guy who did this, a maniac or something.
Their mind doesn't go to Bigfoot.
A little better.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like, and when it comes time to like release press statements with police, it's like, well, we don't want to put out Bigfoot because then that's just going to be in a whole nother can of worms we can't answer. And so maybe they go with that kind of like, the quote safer like statement or description of what they think happened.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's still out there. I'm going to check real quick right now. Typing deputy fired UFO. Let's see if my name pops up.
Yeah, no, I'm familiar with that story. You want to tell our listeners about that? It happened like 10 years ago, right?
Yeah, so your listeners, it's funny as hell. Let me get back over here because I just lost you. Okay. So your listeners out there, if you just go on Google and just type deputy fired UFO, you'll see my name pop up, Chuck Zukowski. So what happened, it was I was a volunteer deputy, and we had an animal mutilation over by Rush, Colorado. And there was 2 horses that were mutilated laying next to each other, probably within 25, 30 feet, both lying on the same side. Both had similar cuts, ground depressions in the area. Pretty cool. 2 other animals experienced it. The dog experienced it, had marks on the dog. Dog survived. One of the horses experienced it, had a mark on its nose, on its legs, had little round quarter-sized marks on the inside of its legs. Really unusual. And the horse wouldn't go out there anymore. They had to actually move the horse from one, actually sold the horse, gave the horse to the vet. The dog suffered, had thyroid issues, and almost died. And it took probably about 4 months for the dog to recoup. So the deputies go out there and they look at this, and the case report from my department, from these 2 deputies. Now, you have to understand that, like county deputies, they'll pick a couple of deputies and they'll run them through like a 1 or 2 week school on animal cruelty, so they'll understand what is animal cruelty and what's not. Because animal cruelty can be a felony if you kill so many animals. You kill so many animals in a row, you're going to become a felon. So they send these 2 guys out and they look at it, and the case report says an unknown the case report said it was not a predator, that the only other possible way it could be is animal cruelty. Even though the case report says that, even though when I talk to the deputies themselves, they go, we don't know what it was, but we put animal cruelty because it's got to be a human that did this, because it definitely wasn't a predator. Because we were trained to know what predators' damage looks like. So I got played by Fox News out of Denver. I got contacted by Glenda, went over there, investigated it a day or so after the deputies, right? And I went with Andy Cohen from KOAA NBC News here. I think, I found out through him. Anyway, a couple days later, Fox News out of Denver came in to interview Glenda. Glenda says, Chuck, can you come down and be with me because I've never been in front of the camera before. So I said, oh, sure, Glenda. And I'll do some follow-up investigations while I'm there. So I went on, and then the Fox reporter interviewed me, and then Glenda had told her that I was a deputy. I didn't tell her, but I was a volunteer deputy. That SOB went right over to my department, to the PR person, to ask him about what they found out about it, and then told them what I said. And they played me against my own department. It's not that I'm a Fox News fan, but I'm definitely not a Fox. Well, later on, there was another journalist I worked out of Fox News out of Denver, was pretty cool. But this particular SOB, man, I swear to God, if I ever see her, well, I can't hit her, but I'll just give her the eye.
Yeah.
I'll give her the evil eye. Well, anyway, it played against me, and then they fired me. Eventually, they fired me. They waited. The pussies at the department, they waited till after the academy was over, a month later, before they fired me. So it wasn't like they wanted, they just wanted to get rid of me. And it was a commander, one particular commander, that didn't like me. He didn't believe in UFOs or any other stuff, and he didn't like me. And at one point, he told me I can't do any investigations in my district. Well, that's El Paso County. That's 2,400 square miles. And I told him, F you.
Yeah.
Now I told him that because I'm a volunteer and I don't get paid. I don't have a pension. I'm doing this on my own time. And this one, jack off is trying to tell me what I can or can't do in my personal life. And I basically told him, to his face, to F off. He didn't like that. And I said, there's no policy I'm breaking. There's nothing. You just don't like me, and I'm not going to do it just because you don't like it. It's so tough. Oh, he was all, oh, you can't talk to me that way. And I'm going, I just did.
Oh, Beavis and Butthead, you're expelled.
Yeah, really. And the bottom line was, he waited until the appropriate time that the academy was done, and they didn't need my services anymore because they had new recruits coming. And then he sent a couple deputies to my house and took my badge and my gun. And I go, I was really upset, but actually that was the best thing that happened to me, because I went right over to Andy Cohen with NBC News here, and Andy Cohen went to the sheriff's department and talked to them, and could not find any policy that I broke. Right. Matter of fact, the PR person that Fox News had talked to lied or was lazy. And I'm going to give her the benefit of the doubt of saying that she was lazy because she never looked at the case report. She told Fox News it was predators that killed those two horses. I told Fox News it wasn't predators, it wasn't human, but it falls under animal cruelty because we have no other thing it can fall under. But it wasn't humans. But if you're going to categorize it animal cruelty. The lieutenant that was the PR person said it was predators. I said it wasn't. That's what got me fired, because I contradicted my sheriff's department. Well, the PR person either lied or never looked at the case report, because the case report said animal cruelty right on it. That's what I said. I agreed with the sheriff's department.
They were trying to discredit UFO stuff.
Of course, it was animals. Aliens were the perpetrators of the animal cruelty, not humans. But that's not the point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you see it as them just trying to keep down UFO stuff. You say, they saw a UFO investigation. They said, we're just going to shut it down.
That's right.
No.
Now, happened to my son, too. My son, who's no longer with the department as of about just over a year ago. We're hoping for a new sheriff of this year, because the one there didn't do anything different than the previous sheriff, who was corrupt. He kept the same command staff there. And I know with the Black Lives Matter, and I know what's going on with that, and I know there is some racism, out there. Being a deputy, I've seen it, but it's just not our, our black brothers and sisters. It's Caucasians, it's Hispanics too, and so I do believe that we do need some changes. But it's got to be within the department. It's got to be the policies and procedures, and it's got to be quarterly, if not twice a year, for these things, to set in place. Some of these departments just let guys go, and it'll corrupt the person if you put a police officer or deputy in the bad part of a city or a bad part of the county, and you keep them there for a year or two, they're going to start resenting the people that are there because they're doing it's crap. It's not fair because it's not fair to the other parts of the county or the city. That's not that way, right? So that's the problem I've seen. Sheriff's Department since then has been moving deputies around from district to district to district to try to avoid anything like that. But cops are only human. They're human too, and they can get their feelings hurt. And anyway, that's where biasism, in my opinion, kind of pop up. I've personally seen it at the Sheriff's Department. My sergeant Sergeant Waters is black, and I would have put my life in jeopardy to protect him. He's a really, really cool guy. But I'm a Polish Mexican, so ever since I was a little kid, I was a minority, being either a Polak or a Mexican, and so I understand the Hispanics too. With that, Polish not too much, but because there's not a lot of Polish people out here in Colorado. But but anyway,
thanks for keeping it diverse up there for the Polish people.
Yeah.
West Texas loves you.
So I can understand that. So either the PR person of the Sheriff's Department either lied because she was told to lie, or she never looked at the case report because she was lazy. Now my son was on patrol at night, and he got a call over the radio that there was a Bigfoot sighting over by Gold Camp Road, and he radioed in and says, "I'm going to roll on that." Well, my son's been on investigations with me. Of course he wants to roll on it. Someone physically was driving on this dirt road, and they saw a Bigfoot cross their path. Now, I've been on that dirt road numerous times as a deputy during fires blocking the road off, because that's what the volunteers would pop in, and we would do the roadblocks and secure neighborhoods and do all kinds of stuff while the full-timers would do other stuff too. And so I knew the area. The sergeant on duty said, "Nah, don't do that shit. Don't go investigate that shit. Stay in your area. Don't go there." And I'm going, what the hell? Okay, first off, if it was a Bigfoot, we could have actually had, someone involved in law enforcement, with cameras or, dash cam stuff, pick something up. But let's say it wasn't. Let's say it was a guy in a ghillie suit, a perp out there, or a burglar or something. So now, because he didn't go out there, now I found out later, from my son. Well, the next day he goes, "Oh, Dad, I had a call for Bigfoot." I go, "Where at?" He goes, "Oh, blah blah blah." He couldn't tell me that night because you can't. He just said, "We had a call in this particular area," and he couldn't even tell me where it was. And I said, "Was it Gold Camp Road?" He says, "I'm not going to tell you." And I said, "Okay." So I went towards Gold Camp Road because that's where we had sightings in the past. So he didn't violate any policies by telling me exactly where it was. He just said we had a sighting. I kind of figured out where the sighting was from other previous sightings. And I found some evidence that something ran across the road and jumped up on the other side of the road because there was a big old rock there. And it jumped up about 5 feet on this rock. And it made the rock slide down and roll. And nothing else was moved. Now, it was in that area. I can't tell you if that could have been erosion too, but right across the dirt road, I saw another imprint of something that hit the edge of the road to run across the road and hit the embankment on the other side. So I'm guessing maybe that was it. But we have had sightings pretty close to Colorado Springs recently, even within the last year, Bigfoot. But you're right. A lot of these departments. Now, I've worked with other departments and other counties here in Colorado Springs or Colorado. In Trinidad and what was the other one too? I just drew the blank of that county. But anyway, and they're very open to helping. Animal mutilations and all kinds of stuff. And then other Georgia, Dakota, Ohio. I've worked with departments over there too. Oregon. Remember the cattle mutilations in Oregon about a year ago? There were some cattle mutilations. Anyway,
did
those
you go
suckers would not
investigate
talk
those
to
guys?
me.
Oh, cops wouldn't help you in Oregon with the cattle mutilations?
What's that?
The cops in Oregon weren't helpful with the cattle mutilations out there?
Oh no, they wouldn't even return my calls. They wouldn't even do anything. Yeah, the particular one, I think it was about 2 years ago in Oregon. Just wouldn't talk to me. Ohio, I think there was one recent, last year or two or so ago. They wouldn't help me either. So some departments are open, some departments aren't. That's just based on them and their policies. Hopefully, if this information comes out at least by the end of June, I don't expect our government to come out and say aliens exist. I 99.9% think that's not going to happen. There's always that 1% chance that it will. But I think what they're going to come out at the end of the month and saying, we need to address this further. We need to look into this further. In other words, what they're saying is, we don't know what the hell it is, or we know what the hell it is. We're not going to tell you.
We're not going to tell you. Yeah, sure. You know about the Marfa lights?
Yeah, at Texas Marfa lights. Yeah.
You know anything about those? Because I had to work in Marfa this last summer, and I would go out to the nights periodically, right? And like to the viewing station to see the lights. And
did you see them?
No, I didn't. I mean, maybe I'd see a reflection. I don't know.
I went there a few years ago, and it's I feel like Marfa's always been Texas's Roswell just because of the lights, and you always hear about it. And I mean, I just kept seeing this like constant like red light kind of near the horizon, and we went like midnight. We weren't trying to go there at 9 p.m. when it was convenient for us, and I don't know exactly what we saw because it could have just been something like a station. Maybe someone set up like a radio station way off, and they knew that red light was in that it was convenient or something.
I mean, the Marfa lights have been around since before that technology.
Yeah.
Right.
Have you seen the Marfa lights?
I've never seen the Marfa lights, but they're very similar to the Joplin lights in Missouri. And they call them the Joplin spook lights. But I've recorded, video recorded, balls of light in Missouri, near Branson, Missouri, outside of Branson, Missouri, out in the middle of the woods. I was doing some investigations there with my sister a few years ago. Flew out there a couple times and recorded the lights twice. I actually ran an experiment out there. What I think these lights are is they're mechanical probes. And they're like the probes that we send out to the moon and Mars and Venus, or whoever. No, I don't know Venus, but Saturn. And what they're doing, in my opinion, is they're keeping an eye on the environment. And I only learned that after what I did was it's called Marley Woods, Missouri, and it's still hot, but we don't go out there too much because we don't want to upset not only what's going on there, but the people that live there too. They're trying to keep a low, very, very low key. But we went out there a few years ago, and the first time I went out there on video, I picked up a light popping up. Now, what happens with the Marley lights is if it pops up on one day, it'll definitely pop up the second day. So the ranchers in the area, if they and it usually pops up right after dusk, just as it gets dark, that's when it pops up. And there's no stars or anything. I mean, it physically pops up. Now, sometimes they'll see one or two, and sometimes they'll see stadium of lights, which is way, way cool. Like 20 or so. Now, when we were there, we had a camera set up. And it was the right time of the year that they were saying that these things were going to happen. And usually the animals start making noise first. The farm animals start making noise. And sure enough, the farm animals will start making noise. And I had my camera set up. And I was using a Sony Handycam and a night vision because the Sonys have got really good night vision, super night shot. And sure enough, it goes blink and a little light pops up. And it's out there for a few seconds. And then it goes out. And it's gone. And it's just above the tree line. And so that was the first night. So the second night, I was there with a couple of other investigators out of Missouri. And one of them had been investigating that area for like 8 years. and he never did what I suggested. I'm the newbie. He wanted me part of his team, and then he fired me because I guess I outshined him. But I said, okay, so how do you know this light's not coming from a house or something beyond the woods? He goes, well, there's nothing back there. I said, how can you guarantee that? Well, we can't guarantee that because he's always been here looking at that direction. So I had a couple of radios with me that have like a 20-mile radius, and we looked at the map. I said, okay, I'm taking a camera and I'm going to be here tomorrow night because we think this is going to happen again. Okay, I'm going to send you and this other guy out this dirt road around the back on the side of the Marley Woods where there's an opening. And if this light comes on, I'm going to radio you. And if you see the light coming from behind the woods, now we know. If you can't see the light, it tells me it's coming from the woods. Oh, yeah, great idea. And sure enough, and I think I actually have it on YouTube somewhere where it's called the Marley Lights. And you can hear me go, Ted, the light's up. Can you see it? Ted, can you see it? And the fucker, he goes, no, I don't see a light. I don't see a light. I go, you don't see the light, Ted? We got it. We see it. And then the owner, yeah, we see it too, So it worked out. So where they were, we were able to determine the light was actually coming out of the woods and not coming from behind the woods.
Bouncing on foes like trampolines. Just a great state of Texas. I can't believe. One to side, one to side, one to side, one to side. Swerve, the rims is glistening. They got see the wood cause the top is missing. I sleep on dreams cause it's paper I'm chasing. My roots come from Texas, this inflation. One to side, one to side, one to side.